Have you ever tried to convince leadership that you had an idea to save the company money, but really struggle to keep their attention, let alone get them to take action? Yeah, me too. And I can still feel the frustration just like it was yesterday. What I learned about how to get leadership to not only listen to your ideas, but to actually take some action is what I'm going to share with you today. If you don't know me, my name is Dave Chrysler, and I've spent more than 20 years in operational leadership roles and consulting with manufacturing leaders to help you create systems that free you to focus on driving growth and operating with excellence. So how do we get leadership to not only listen to our ideas, but to take action and implement them? The secret is data-driven change management. Now, that may sound complex, but today I'm going to break it down into 5 dead simple steps that you can start implementing today. While you'll find several different definitions for change management, here's how I like to define it: a systematic approach for helping people deal with change. Now, in the case of leadership, their resistance to change is typically driven by a lack of confidence. And it's not a lack of confidence in themselves, but rather a lack of confidence in the decisions that they're having to make on a day-to-day basis. Meaning it's easier to stay the course and not change because of their confidence level that they can predict the outcome of their current situation and current processes, versus accepting and embracing change where the outcome is typically less predictable, at least in the short term. So how do we build up this confidence? We use data. Step number 1 is all about identifying and defining what we're proposing to change. This can be generated through process or value stream mapping, a 6S project, root cause analysis project or event, or any other type of similar tool or event. This can come from a continuous improvement committee. It can come through an individual. It can also be generated from outside a specific process or department or area, or it can come directly from those that touch a specific process, department, or area. It doesn't really matter where the idea for change is generated, at least from a leadership's perspective. It really only matters if there is a significant return on investment, or ROI, for this proposed change initiative. Step 2 is all about gathering data. And this step is arguably one of the most important parts of this entire process. You must be able to understand your KPIs, or key performance indicators, that you need to measure in order to be able to move into the next steps. Think about resources that are being consumed throughout the process, like labor and material. How much of those things are being consumed and at what intervals? Next, you want to be thinking about what is an appropriate amount of time to be able to collect the data that we ultimately want to be able to take a look at to prove out the return on investment of this change initiative. At minimum, I would recommend looking at a 3-month window. But you can honestly go as long or as short as you need to, keeping in mind that the data you are gathering is what is ultimately going to be presented to leadership. So what you don't want to do is to be able to introduce an opportunity to question the validity of the data that you've collected and are ultimately presenting. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to collecting the data is that this part of the process does not need to be complex. We don't necessarily need to have a piece of technology implemented in order to collect this data. We can literally use pen and paper and tally sheets to be able to go through and not only collect the data, but then utilize that in the next steps to summarize and ultimately present this information to leadership. Now, if you have access to a technology resource like an ERP system, for example, that may help speed this process up because more than likely you have access to a significant amount of historical data that, again, you can combine with current data to be able to paint a really clear picture as it comes to presenting this to leadership. Step number 3 is all about analyzing the data. What you're looking for here is to be able to understand what the data is telling you and to answer the question of the change idea that you are evaluating, does it have a positive return on investment? So, for example, let's say that your change idea is going to cost the company a $10,000 initial investment. When you analyze the data, can you save the company $20,000? And if you can, how long is it going to take to be able to realize those savings? A good rule of thumb is a 3x investment within a 2-year time frame. Now, obviously, this will vary based on your specific business, leadership team, organizational goals, and it's always good to have an idea of what these thresholds are when it comes to evaluating change initiatives. But as I mentioned, a good rule of thumb is a 3x investment within a 2-year time frame. Step 4 is all about presenting your position. So this is where the rubber meets the road. I recommend organizing your presentation with the following 5 sections. Number 1, the problem. Number 2, what's the change idea? Number 3, what data have you gone and gathered? Number 4, how have you analyzed that data? And number 5, presenting the solution and the return on investment. The reason you want to present your position in this particular order is that it demonstrates to leadership that you have followed a well thought out framework and that your change initiative is based solely on the data and removes emotion from the equation. Leadership not only appreciates this approach, but it makes it extremely easy to understand what's the payback, what time frame is the payback, and ultimately, how does this fit into our overall organizational goals? Is this something we should execute right away? Is this something that we can maybe plan for within the next 6, 12, or 18 months? Step number 5 is something I see far too many companies skip out on when they're going through a change initiative and data-driven change management. Step number 5 is all about what happens after the approval is given and the implementation of the change happens. You don't want to stop gathering and analyzing the data once the change has been implemented. I recommend that you do monthly reporting so that you can compare the anticipated return on investment to the actual return on investment. Now, this does 2 things for you. Number 1, it lets you evaluate where you're at in comparison to what the anticipated return on investment was. And if you happen to be running behind or something has changed that impacts that return on investment, it gives you an opportunity to address that to ultimately maximize what your return on investment is. The second thing that it does is it really builds confidence throughout the organization with both leadership and the people who are offering up these change ideas and doing the heavy lifting of implementing them. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to continue learning about business systems that free you to drive growth and operate with excellence.